October 16th, 2016 probably means nothing to you, but it was actually the date where one of the world's largest and most well-known living wildernesses, the Great Barrier Reef, was pronounced dead after 25 million years because of coral bleaching. Now, this statement was made by leading environmental writer Rowan Jacobson, and he didn't mean that there was absolutely no life left in the Great Barrier Reef. What he meant by this was that he was really drawing the attention to the severity of the problem because not many people are aware of how extreme it is. Coral bleaching is a really big problem that's happening on a global scale, and right now is the worst it's ever been. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about what coral bleaching is, what the importance of coral reefs are, the effects that coral bleaching can have on not only fish populations, but the human populations, and what we can do to help repair these reefs. This is an infographic from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and it shows the process in which a coral becomes a reef. First, over here, to put it simply, think of coral and algae as best friends. They hang out with each other all the time as the algae live within the coral and use it for shelter, and the algae is the primary food source for the shelter, and the algae is the primary food source for the coral, and it's actually what gives the coral their vibrant colors. However, when there's a slight change in ocean temperature that's out of the ordinary, an increase or decrease in it, or because of pollution from runoff, the algae gets stressed and leave the coral. Now, when the algae leave, the coral becomes white and is called bleached coral. Bleached coral is not necessarily dead, but that just means that if the stress continues and the algae don't return within 3 to 4 weeks, then the coral dies. This is, it shows the results of a study done on the use of coral reefs as a barrier for natural disasters on shorelines. And this is one of the great benefits that coral reefs provide humans with. It shows that the energy of a wave coming to shore can be reduced by 97% by a coral reef, and that the height of a wave can be reduced by 84%. This is really important because about 197 million people live within 30 miles of the coral reef and receive these benefits. It's also important because the study shows that these coral reefs, restoring them and repairing them for the use of the natural barrier is more cost effective than building man-made barriers. The website globalcoralbleaching.org also talks about how important corals are for coral reef fishes. Coral reefs are only 1.1% of the area of the entire ocean, but 25% of all of the species that live in the ocean rely on coral reefs for food and shelter. This is really important because shoreline communities, such as the one here in Malibu and in Southern California, rely heavily on these coral reefs for food and jobs in the fishing industry, about 500 million people worldwide. So what can coral bleaching do to fishes? Well, a book called The Ecology of Fishes on Coral Reefs shows that when coral reefs are bleached in an ecosystem, the population of fishes in that ecosystem changes drastically, and they highlight the fact that corals are a keystone species, meaning that they're so important that if you take them away, that the entire ecosystem just goes out of balance. This is also a big problem for people who rely on these fish for food, because a 50% decline in the life of a coral reef can lead to up to a 30% decrease in the number of fish caught. Another article about the Great Barrier Reef from Daniel Cressy talks about the current coral crisis in the Great Barrier Reef, and that 50% of the entire reef is bleached right now. And even 50% of the amount that is bleached is already dead, meaning that a quarter of the Great Barrier Reef is dying. This has huge effects on the tourism in Australia, because tourism is such an important part of Australia's economy for the Great Barrier Reef because it's so well known worldwide. This poll was taken, and they asked families from 4 different countries around the world, China, USA, UK, and Australia, if they would travel somewhere else, or at least somewhere else within Australia because of coral bleaching, and large percentages of them said that they would. Even people in Australia would consider not going to the Great Barrier Reef because of that. This can lead up to an almost $1 billion loss to the tourism economy in Australia and directly affect 10,000 jobs. So, what can we do about this problem? Well, the Nature Conservatory website gives us a few ideas. One is to conserve water. You can do this by taking shorter showers. Another thing you can do is to reduce pollution by walking more, riding your bike more, or using public transportation. Another important thing is to dispose of the trash properly, because a lot of plastic ends up in the ocean and can kill sea animals. Another really important thing is to spread the word, because not many people are aware of the extremity of the problem right now, and it's really important that we have these conversations about what we can do. Another thing you can do is plant a tree in your community as well. On a global level, one thing that you can do is donate to the Coral Restoration Foundation. The Coral Restoration Foundation is a really important nonprofit organization that builds coral reef nurseries and studies them to see how they can implement techniques of building coral reefs and restoring them to use in other places around the world. Another thing that you can do, that you can even do right now, is to download the GoFlow app. And the GoFlow app partnered with an organization called Beach Patrol that was started by students at Columbia University. And what you can do through that app is wherever you are, if maybe you're snorkeling or scuba diving, or even just walking along the beach and you see some washed up bleached coral, through that app you can report where you are, the magnitude of the bleaching and the severity of the bleaching, and that information goes directly to those scientists at Columbia University so that they can study the bleaching in that area. So, in the past few minutes, I've defined coral bleaching for you. We've looked at how coral reefs provide both fishes and humans with a lot of important resources. We've also looked at how coral bleaching can greatly affect the economy and the availability of food around the world. And we've also seen ways that we can make a difference about it. The global coral bleaching crisis that we're going through right now is the worst in the Earth's history. And if we don't stop it soon, then the Great Barrier Reef won't be the only life taken by coral.